Thank you, Mr. President, fellow Rotarians, and I guess not too many guests today, so just Asa is joining us, but it's with great pleasure I get to introduce today's speaker. Asa Lewis Jr. was born and raised in Peoria. He spent his entire education through high school as a Peoria Public Schools student. He has worked in that same district for now over 10 years. He started in special education classrooms as a one-on-one for 7 years before moving to his current role as a behavior coach. Ace is finishing up his college degree in elementary education, and when not studying, he's coaching high school football. And Ace is very knowledgeable on high school football at Peoria High School, where they lost last weekend, unfortunately. And he's very busy while running a nonprofit organization he's here to talk to us about today. And the organization is Make Your Marq, and Asa has an incredible story. Let's give him a warm Peoria-North welcome. Asa Lewis Jr.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay? I'm don't really talk to the microphone very much. So, like I said, my name is Asa Lewis Jr., born and raised in Peoria. Been here for 36 and a half years, or spent a semester at University of Iowa until out-of-state tuition. Out-of-state tuition got me, so I had to come back. And so, but like I said, I've been this kid. The kids that I work with down at least Fort Allen, the old Roosevelt, that was me. So that's part of my story. So like I said, I've been in the district since 2013. And the one thing that I noticed, and I think this is a lot of places, but especially in our school system, is that the squeaky wheel gets the attention, right? That's just how it goes. So when you have kids who are struggling and stuff like that, those are the ones when all these problem-based meetings are happening. It's like, how do we get the kids? We spend our time on the bottom 10% and the top 10%. If you're top 10, great, straight A's, like we do put on all the social media, stuff like that. And then we have our meetings for the bottom 10. How do we get them where they need to be? And that leaves an 80% of kids who are just not getting the attention that they need. And the problem with that is that's how kids leak into the bottom 10%. I'm sure if I asked you all this, can you remember the last compliment or good job that you got? It's probably been a while for most of us, right? Like it's usually something very generic. Like, oh, hey, I like your shirt, or hey, did you get a haircut? Very generic things. I'm 37 and I love compliments. Like, so when, if I go there and say, hey, Asa, you're doing a great job, I'm like, I am, aren't I? Yeah, okay, I can do that. So that was one of the things I noticed in the schools was it can be very negative. It can be very, it's all about negative reinforcement, taking away things. Oh, you're having a bad day, you can't play sports tonight. Oh, you had a bad day, you can't have recess. And I'm a big Disney nerd. And the one thing that I always use for my kids is I look at Monsters, Inc., right? Monsters, Inc., I don't know if anybody saw it. Most of you have kids, I'm sure you've seen it. They start off scaring the kids, and that's how they get stuff out of them. And then they realize later on, if you get the kids laughing and smiling, that's how you get more out of them. And I was like, it sounds very generic because it's a Disney movie, but that's how all Disney movies are. But it's real. You'll get more out of me if I want to do it, as opposed to you making me do something. So I got into school since 13. I've been working in special ed, and that was one of the things that I did, was doing a lot of positivity with our kids and stuff like that. And then in 2017, I ended up losing my brother to gun violence. And I spent years with the negativity and the sadness, and you go through and you post the pictures and the RIPs and all that stuff. And then I'm looking in the news and I'm seeing this happening over and over and over and over and over again. And I finally said, what can I do to help, right? It's easy to say, we need to do better. Everybody says we need to do better. Peoria needs to do better. The city needs to do better. The state needs to do better. The country needs to do better. Everybody needs to do better. Well, what are we doing? It's easy to say, but what are we doing? So that's when I started Make Your Marq. And it's spelled with a Q in honor of my brother, Marquez. And so that's what it is. So my brother was not perfect by any means. He was what I call a coin flip kid. You can go left or right. And whoever he's around, that's where he's going to go. And I wanted to make sure that anybody who could be gotten to, we got. Every child is worth saving. Now, that doesn't mean every child can be, but they're all worth it. They need our time, they need our investment, they need us to care. And so that's what I wanted to spend my time doing, is making sure that anybody we can get, if you want to do the right thing, if you want to stay out of trouble, if you want to be a positive and contributing member to society, I will do everything I can to get you there. Well, how do you do that? Because we all know what we need isn't always what we do. I know I need to go to the gym every single day because this belly is not getting any smaller. I'm drinking soda, eating things I shouldn't. That doesn't mean I go to the gym every day. I know I need to, but do I? No. Sometimes I want to go 4 or 5 days in a row. You're feeling great, and then you had a late night on Friday night, so you don't go on Saturday, then you don't go on Sunday, and then Monday you get a soda. You're like, oh, I've lost again next week, and you find all these excuses, right? So how do you get somebody who needs it but doesn't really want to do it? You got to make it cool. That's what matters with kids. It's got to be cool. They don't care. Like, there's a kid who can get to a fight every single day. He knows he should not be fighting. I can talk to him about it till I'm blue in the face, but unless I make it something that he wants to do, he is not going to hear any word I'm saying. So, go to the kids. I start working at Roosevelt, at least for Allen Academy, and I go to the teacher and say, who is the coolest kid in the school? We had a big football player named Jaquarius Green. He still plays for us at Peoria High. Like 6'2", 3'5", big. I mean, 8th grade, just a big kid, but good grades, good behavior. All the kids gravitated towards him. So, all right. So I go to Jaquarius and said, hey, I have an idea, but I need you to help me do it. He's like, what's up? I said, all right, I need you to help me get the other kids in the school to come listen to me talk about how we need to behave differently. And he said, Coach, nobody's going to listen to that. I said, I know, exactly. That's why I need you. Because if you go, they'll go. So, all right, I'll go. So we have started our first Make Your Marq meetings. All right, so Make Your Marq, it's a play on words, right? Obviously, my brother's name was Marquez, so that's why I spell it that way. But the whole idea of it is to say everything you do makes a difference, positive or negative. Every action you take or inaction you take or don't take affects what you're doing. So we tell our kids all the time, if you're in a classroom and you see something, and you see kids being loud and they're trying to talk to you and you don't tell them, hey, be quiet, then you're okay with it. You're saying it's okay. So you're making your classroom a more difficult place to learn. So that's what we start talking about. So we find a way to make your mark. Everything you do is positive. So we go to Jaquarius, we go to the teachers, we go to the other kids that we start getting and saying, hey, what do we need to do to help this school become a better, more consistent place to learn? First thing they say, let us wear hoods. Like, that has nothing to do with learning. All right? Like, let us wear our hoodies, that has nothing to do with your learning. All right. Let us be on our phones. Like, that's like, you guys are going backwards into these types of things. So, but we start getting to them, we start finding some different ways. And one of the things I really learned from kids was, what do they consider cool? Because what I think is cool, I'm an old man now. Like, it's hard to think about yourself in that way, right? My knees and my back remind me consistently that I am that old man. Like, what do you guys think is cool? And they all say, it's something that nobody else can have, right? So that's why they'll go to Chicago to buy a t-shirt. And I'm like, it's a t-shirt. He said, but nobody has it. So it's cool. I'm like, okay. So that's when we started making our gear. So we have our Make Your Marq shirts. So if you're in Make Your Marq Leadership Council, you get shirts like this or sweatshirts that are all colorful and bright and positive because it makes you stand out in a way that stands out different than everybody else. Everybody else is wearing polo and khakis. Our kids are wearing Make Your Marq shirts. They're bright, they're colorful, which I hate. I like black and gray and boring, but the kids love the color. So we find a way to make them stand out positively. And because if you do that, now if you're a teacher and you're walking around and you see this kid, Jaquarius, walking around with a big red sweatshirt that has Make Your Marq on it, like, Jaquarius, how'd you get that? Oh, Coach Lewis challenged me to get my grades up and I got all A's and B's now. And so now a kid's talking positively about themselves because it's not as easy as you think. I talked to Adam about it earlier. For everybody who has kids or has had kids or works with kids, if you go ask a young person to name 3 things they like about themselves and 3 things they fix about themselves, almost all will start with the negative because it's easy. It's what you hear more of. So you ask me 3 things I like about myself, I could give you 15, but I'm old and I've learned these things, right? Kids don't have that same positivity. Everything is very negative. They talk to each other, even their friends, they talk to each other very negatively. It's like, man, you ugly. Like, that's your friend, right? Like, I thought that was your friend, but them shoes are trash. Like, you guys see each other every day. Like, that's how you talk to your friend. Well, that's how we talk. But then those things start to seep in. They start to linger. You start to believe them. Even if they're joking, you start to believe them. And so our kids turn out to have more negative thoughts, and everything they do goes to a negative place, and that's what we're going to get out of. So when we're doing those types of things, we have our goals. We want to reward the positive and change behaviors. So if you have kids who come to school every day, keep coming to school. We want to reward you for that. That doesn't happen as much as when we were growing up, where it was just the expectation was you go to school. It's not that way anymore, right? If you're a good student in the hallways, if you're a good friend, we want to reward you for that because it's not as common as it used to be. I was so against rewarding kids for doing what you're supposed to be doing. It sounds absurd. Why would I reward you for doing what you're supposed to do? But then you go work at a school and you realize it's not as common as you think. You need to reward them for doing those things to keep them doing those things. And the other thing we did was we really wanted to focus on the outside of school decision making. Because as you've seen in the news and the paper, whether it's the cars, whether it's the gun violence, whether it's all these other things, you have the fights at Elevate, you have the fights everywhere. There's violence that's happening to younger and younger and younger and younger and younger kids. You're reading papers and it's like a 13-year-old stole a car. This group of 14-year-olds got into a fight at Elevate. And it's like, when I was 13, 14, I was trying to get on the bike and go find my friends. But it's different. And if we don't change with it, it's not going to change. We can complain about it, but if we're not going to adjust how we attack the problem, it's not going to make a difference. So that's what we did. We said, hey, I want to find a way to make sure our kids know that when this happens, this is how you can adjust to it. We all know if you know a problem's coming, it's way easier to adjust. So we went to our kids and said, hey, when you're out here and that person calls you bald-headed, guys, I get it all the day. The worst thing you can do in middle school is be bald-headed and have an Android phone. They are the two cardinal sins of being in a middle school, and I am both, so apologies there. But when you go to a kid and you say, hey, this is going to happen. You're going to be with a kid, and they're going to say something negative about you, about your family, about your mom, about a dead sibling, about your clothes, and it's going to happen. And when it happens, this is what I need you to do. They can do it because they know it's coming now. So now if I say, hey, when that happened, we talked about this. What are you supposed to do? We're supposed to press pause, right? That's what our main goal is. Press pause, take a second. The first reaction isn't the right reaction always, right? So take a second, breathe, and then think about it. Then we'll talk about it. Then we'll go forward. And so now we have kids. Now I'll walk down the hallways, and I'll see a kid. They'll come out the hall. They'll come out the bathroom, and they'll look right, which is where their class is, and they'll look left, which is the longest way possible, and not where their class is. And you'll see them kind of fight themselves. It's like, and they walk out like, oh, yes. But then I'll go find them and I'll say, hey, I watched you have that internal battle. You want to do right. It's hard, right? Your friends are over here doing the wrong things, right? You want to go there and hear Miss Simpson being loud and telling you to do science? Or do you want to go over here where everybody's laughing and joking, they're showing you TikTok videos on their phone? This is the choice most of us make, but I saw you fight. I saw you do the right thing. We saw you go this way. And that's what we're trying to get done. So we've had some really good results with what we're doing. Since 2020, since we got back from COVID, we are down 36% on referrals. So referrals are negative-based things, whether it's it can be minors like talking in class, being disruptive. They can be majors like fighting or language. And we're down 36% since 2020. We always take a focus on certain groups. In 2021, our focus was on our young men because they had a lot of issues coming back from COVID. And we had a 56% drop in their referrals. But unfortunately, our young ladies went up. So this year we flipped it. We got focused on our young ladies now and doing that. So we're really trying to do some things to do that and really get through to our kids. But it's one of those things where, again, you have to meet them where they're at. Gangs are being increased more and more and more. And one of those things we talked about was the reason that these kids are getting in trouble and finding these issues and finding these gangs and finding stuff like that is because they want to be a part of something. A lot of our kids that I work at the 61604. I think we're the second or third poorest zip code in the state of Illinois, which says a lot. So how do you find success down there when everything around you, there's no stores, there's no safe places to play, there's nothing like that? How do you find a way to be successful? And so that's what we're trying to get done. With gangs, that's where the kids find what they're looking for, which is belonging, right? So I want to stand out. You say, hey, you want me to come hang out with you? Like, deal. You say, go steal a car? That sounds like a terrible idea, but you said you want me to be with you. And I'm craving attention. I'm craving somebody who wants me. I'm craving somebody who says they love me, they care about me. So yeah, I'll do something stupid for you because you care about me. Well, that's what we're trying to do right now is get our kids to feel like there's something positive, right? So at our school, we have orange and blue Make Your Marq sweatshirts or long sleeve shirts that our kids can earn for positive behaviors, positive grades and stuff like that. And our leadership council, they get sweatshirts where they stand out even more. So those are the ones who have, we expect them to have they reach their potential grade wise. Now we adjust because we can't have one standard, right? We can't just be A's and B's because there's some kids who work their asses off for C's. They need to be rewarded too, right? So we want to make sure that everybody feels like they have a place to make a difference in their school. So we spend time with doing that. We try to find them doing the positive things. We want to make them stand out positively. We have wristbands that we give out to the kids. So when I see them in the recess, like, hey, how'd you get your wristband? Oh, Miss Key said that she was proud of the way my attendance had improved. Well, now I love you for that. I'm proud of you. Good job. So now every time they see me, like, hey, Coach Lewis, little fist bump. Like, I have 600 kids. I don't know all their names, but they all know me because I'm walking around, I'm smiling, I'm laughing, I'm joking, I'm challenging them. I see them at their games. I see them at speech tournaments. I see them at the gas station. Being there for our kids will be enough if it's consistent. I talked to Adam about that again earlier. He asked, how do you fix it? How do you fix what's going on in the city? And I think what we're doing right now is the key. And it's not saying that I'm the only one because I'm not by any means. There's some great groups around here. I know Ms. Schuler came and talked about, at least for Ellen down there. I know we have some reading buddies who come out to our school. There's some other great programs, but it is really hard. And everybody in this room can talk about how hard it is to change your ways the older you get. We all know every day that passes by, we get more and more stubborn in what we're trying to do. So how do you change a 16, 18, 20, 22-year-old kid who's been consistently one way for a long, long, long time, and they don't want it? It's hard. You change the kids who want it. You change the 6, the 8, the 10, the 12, the ones who still want to go to school, the ones who still care about doing the one right, the ones who still want to hug you every day. And that's what we're trying to get done. One of the things I take pride in is every day that I get up for school, every single day, I will drive to the school, I will sit in my car, and I will talk to myself and say, hey, everybody in there deserves your best. And it sucks. Because there's times where you go in there, you're like, hey, look, my dogs didn't sleep. I had 2 Shih Tzus, and they sleep in the bed because they're spoiled dogs, and they didn't sleep well. One got up and puked at 3 a.m., so I had to get up, clean the sheets, do all that other stuff. I had to take the dogs to grandma's because grandma wanted to see the dogs today, so I'm getting up at 6:15 instead of 6:30. I'm rushing. I get there. I see 2 kids outside who are already in trouble. I'm like, I have to reset myself. And so if I want to do that, and I start talking myself into it, imagine the teachers and the students and the parents. Like it's different. So the one thing I'm asking from you guys is one, to realize what you're doing, and this type of stuff is insanely important. One of the quotes that I've heard that I think is my favorite one is from Fred Rogers, and it says, when I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find who's helping. Everybody in this room is taking time out of their day consistently to help somebody that they might not see people. You might not ever see these people. Like you ever write a check for the polio, and like you might not ever see the fruits of your labor, but it is so important to have groups like you guys. So I appreciate that. That's number one. Number two is we are always looking for volunteer opportunities for our kids. I work with my high school kids, and for them to earn their Make Your Marq gear, they have to volunteer in the community because that's them making their difference. So we've gone to volunteer at stuff downtown on the riverfront. We've done a cleanup over at out at Louisville Slugger Complex. We've gone to all the middle schools and grade schools for summer school. Our kids spend a lot of time helping, and they love it. They look forward to it. I have kids who actually a quick story, and I'll be done. I apologize, I'm going a little bit longer. But our quarterback for our football team, he's had his ups and downs. He's going through some mental stuff. He's had a rough background. I volunteered in 8 different places in the last 2 years, and he's been in every single one. So I have a kid who doesn't know who he is, except he knows that he's a helper. That matters. So when I go to him and I have a tough day with him and he has a rough day, I'm like, hey, man, like, remember this picture when all 17 of these kids, then they saw you, they took a picture with you, and they come to the game on Friday nights and like, oh, we know him, we know 17, and now you're listening. Like, they don't care about your football, they care about you went and saw him at the school. Kids want to be better. Kids care about being better. Kids just don't know how to do better. It's on us to teach them. So if you can find a way to have volunteer opportunities for us, we would love to find ways to team up with you guys with our older kids, or vice versa. When we have our Make Your Marq events down in Roosevelt, we would love to have you guys come be a part of it. Again, I apologize for getting a little bit long-winded. This is not really my style. I like to go back and forth. I would love to answer questions if you guys have any afterwards. But again, the biggest thing I want to give to you guys is make sure you guys understand. One, I appreciate you for all you're doing for everybody in this area. It's huge. But two, our kids need not just me, but you guys as well. So whether it's you seeing them and saying hi to them and just being polite and smiling and stuff like that, like those little things go a long way. When you come down there for the reading buddies and stuff like that, our kids love absolute stuff like that. If you come and volunteer, you'll realize our kids are absolutely amazing. And I just hope that you don't let the newspapers and the media like that disregard the overwhelming majority of our students and our kids who are pretty much superheroes. They wake up in some bad situation. They go to school for the most part. They come and they try their best, and that's where we are trying to make sure that they're doing it. Because what they're doing when they do that is they're making a difference and they're making their mark. So again, I appreciate you. You get a question? Yep, go ahead. Oh, shoot, I didn't realize we were doing that. Yeah.
At the risk of stereotyping or generalizing, how are you combating the problems that these kids might have at home?
Well, one, that's not a stereotype. It's real. So please feel free to speak freely because, like I said, I've talked to Ed about this. Is it the truth? I mean, and that's real. It's hard, and the biggest part is you either empathize with it because you've been that person like I was. It's easy for me to talk to my kids and say, hey, I was you. I lived on Latrobe. We walked on Star. My brother's buried behind Southside Mission. I lived on Marquette, Millman. I've been everywhere you've been. Every situation you've been through, I've experienced. And so that helps. How you combat it is, one, you prepare them to see certain situations, so then it's not a shock, right? So if I say, hey, we're in a school we're in the part of town that has a lot of violence, right? So if I ignore it and say, hey, everything's gonna be okay, and then you see the violence, well, we're not helping anything, right? So we have to talk about it. And that's one of the things that we do. We talk about like, hey, I have kids who come to me and say, hey, Coach Lewis, I can't walk home this way. I'm like, okay, well then we need to talk to mom. Can I drop you off? Do you need to ride the bus? Do you need to do this? Do you do after school program and do A, B, and C? But when it does happen, if I'm not around, if this happens, then we want to go to A. If this happens, then we want to go to B. Food things are a big thing. Like our kids come to school and they're starving, right? So and when I say I'm the pickiest person that you've ever met, like it's bad. Like I'm telling you, I'm the pickiest person you've ever met, and you don't understand how picky I am. It's embarrassing. Like it's like a 3-year-old picky child picky. Like it's bad. So I watch some things our kids eat, and they come to school and they're like, I don't like that. And it's like, how can you not eat that when you're starving? But I was that kid. I'd rather starve than eat a cinnamon toast crunch cereal bar at 8 a.m. Right? So they're trying to survive till lunch. So they're like, okay, when you come here, we have one of my kids has a checklist on his desk, and he comes and he checks his mood every day. He says, first one, did I eat this morning? If it's a yes, we move to the next. If it's a no, we can talk to Miss Keys about getting you something to eat. Because if he doesn't eat, it's gonna be rough. Next thing is, did I sleep well last night? Most of our kids probably not. If it's a yes, we move on. If it's a no, this. The last one he asks is, do I know why I'm in a bad mood? And sometimes you don't. I'm an adult, and so sometimes like, today's just not it. So the biggest thing is identifying the problem and talking to them about it. Because we used to live in a world where we can kind of like gloss over some things, and that's just not the case anymore. They need to know what the truth is. They need to know what they're really going to face. And when you do that type of stuff, you can attack the problem. So talking to them, being open and honest, and giving them multiple solutions. If you say, hey, if this happens, you do this. Okay, well, Coach Lewis, you said if the teacher says do something and I do it, well, she kept yelling at me, so then what do I do? You just keep doing what she says. Like those things don't work, right? So it's okay, you and this teacher don't get along, right? She tells you to do this, like this is what we're gonna do, right? If she keeps poking and poking and poking, or you keep poking and poking and poking, then we have this solution, then we have this solution. If it's black and white, it's gonna be wrong, right? We live in the world of gray, so we gotta make sure we can adjust that way. So, like I said, hopefully I answered that. Like I said, I think that we really want to be specific with the answers. Like, hey, it's not hey, violence is a problem. So, okay, gun violence is a problem, right? So there's different ways to handle gun violence as opposed to people using their fists. So we have to attack those differently. So we can't be, very generalized. We have to find the specific problem, find multiple answers. And then when we're wrong, kids really appreciate when we can say, hey, Coach Lewis is wrong. I'm sorry. Like, and they'll hold it over your head. Coach Lewis, remember when 2 weeks ago when you said that and you were wrong? Yes, buddy, I remember. Yeah. You will never let me forget it. So again, being specific with our answers and attacking certain problems is probably the best way to go about it.
So thank you so much for being here. Your program sounds amazing. I have a comment and then I have a question. A few years ago, my wife started volunteering at Backpack Buddies. And First United Methodist Church downtown, there's a group of, let's just say, seasoned ladies who may pack 200, 300, 400 meals. And I said, kids don't eat on Saturday? Yeah, how can that happen? Well, it happens. So my question now is, how did you get your program approved? It just makes so much sense that I don't understand how it got approved. And what were the politics involved? How do we duplicate it? That sort of thing. Thank you.
Well, one, I like this Q&A answer better because this is my wheelhouse. I love going back and forth. So please feel free to ask questions. But that was honestly the most humbling experience. I've gone through my experience losing my brother to gun violence and going through the ups and downs. And I've lost. I'm coaching Peoria High. We've had one student pass away to gun violence, one student pass away to cancer, multiple we've lost to jail, to the streets. And so it's hard when you see a kid over and over again. You can look at him and say, hey, man, I know you can do this, but you can't get through to him. So I have this idea, and I go to my principal, Laura Rogers, who's now down at Lee's Fertile Academy, and she says, that sounds great. Whatever you need from me, let's go. I'm like, okay, so I go get my 501c3. I'm a nonprofit. I'm like, okay, we are working in the poorest zip code in the state of Illinois. I have a positive message. I have a colorful logo. I have all these cool things. This is going to take off. It's going to be great, and it just doesn't. And it was very. I've tried quitting multiple times. I've tried to fold it. I've tried to stop. I've tried to just make it more of a minor thing I just keep on the back end. And every time I get close, something changes. I've gone to a city council meeting and talked to them about it. They have $8.2 million they have allocated to crime and I think they declared like a state of emergency for crime. So I went to a city council meeting. I said, hey, you guys have $8.2 million. You're talking about how to spend because you're trying to find one answer to a problem that has a million. You can't focus on just this one. I have volunteered. We have fundraised. I have Ubered to fund what I'm doing. To get $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 to be able to just survive this. Like everything comes out of my pocket until we finally got a little bit of donation. You guys have $8.2 million to help focus on the things that we're doing in the city. And instead of spending any of it, you're arguing over how to spend it. It's very, very, very hard. The politics of it are absolutely insane. And it's really frustrating when you go to places or you I've talked to the police chiefs, I've talked to the mayor. I'm a part of the Peoria Role Model Project. I've had all these cool connections, and it never seems to go into, hey, we're going to help you, help our kids. And that's one of the most frustrating parts about anything I've ever done, because the people who help have not been people who are in it. And that's been very humbling, very humbling. It is not to say that our city is that they're not doing things that they need to get done, because I'm sure the city, all the city council and the mayor and the police chief are doing amazing things, and this city does have its issues. My problem is not the main problem, but it has been very, very, very disappointing. I've gone to Dr. Karat and said, hey, our schools have these issues. I've sent emails, I've talked. I'm like, and I don't even want it for myself. You can take Make Your Marq and give it to anybody who wants to do it. And that's what I mean. This is a program that it can go out to more, they can go to deep. It is all about positivity, rewarding positive and change behaviors, and giving you the skills to handle life. If the district came to me and said, hey, we want to take this and put it in every school, it's yours. I'm not doing this for myself. I promise you I'm not. Because if I had hair, it'd be gray, right? They stress me out. It's a lot, but I believe in what we're trying to get done. And every time I try to stop, something comes. Whether it's a kid comes and says, hey, Coach Lewis, I love you. Okay, I love you too. I'll keep going, right? Hey, we have no money. I had a friend said, hey, man, I got a little bit back my taxes. here's $900 to go toward t-shirts. Well, that gives us a few shirts to start passing out to kids. Like that's where we are. And so that it's what you're saying is exactly what I felt for a long time. The politics of it are very, very, very humbling. And I don't have the ability to play the game. Like I can't go and kiss up and say, hey, let's shake hands and kiss babies and all that stuff. Like, I feel like my boots are on the ground. I'm in it every single day and I enjoy it. And if we get support, great. If not, we're gonna make it anyways. That's kind of how we look at it.
So really quickly, I just want to follow up on a previous comment that you made to see if what I heard was correct. But I would sit out here and say, these kids aren't eating white. There seems to be plenty of food pantries and stuff. But what I just wanted to follow up with is, it sounds like people need to do a better job of maybe changing how we deliver food. Because if you hand a kid a sack of food he's not going to eat, you're still not feeding him. So I'll just go back to, I think we need to readdress how we're doing this. Because I would ask, there seems to be tons of resources. Why aren't kids eating? And you just said, we can hand them a bag of food, and if they don't like it, they're not going to eat it. So that's kind of my comment for just as we do these things going forward.
And that's the thing, and that's the thing I think is the biggest focus of what we got going on right now is the ability to change how we used to think as opposed to what's needed now. The amount of things I can get kids to do for a bag of Takis, which are absolutely disgusting, and the hands, the red and blue hands that I see every day are so gross. They try to shake my hand like, oh, that's gross. Please go wash your hands first. But I mean, I have kids who I can literally say, hey, man, I need you to go in here and figure this out. And they will literally say, what do I get? Like it's a different world. And so for me, I can tell them like nothing. Go get an education. But that's my relationship with them. But the ones who do the things, you can literally get a kid to do a lot of things just for semi-quality food, right? But like I said, it's easy to say, hey, we packed a bunch of bags, we packed a bunch of lunches. These kids, we were giving these kids to be great. Probably a significant amount of the kids would eat it, but there's a big majority who might not. And that's the part is like, are we just kind of canvassing things and throwing it together and saying, here, look, we did this, we gave it here, we gave you a bunch of food, we're feeding the kids. Like, it sounds great in theory, but are we? And so that's where it's like, it might be more simple where it's just, I know a lot of this stuff's prepackaged or different things. I mean, I don't have all of the answers, actually probably don't have any of the answers. But it's one of those things where it's very humbling to see, kids walk out of school in a half day with a snack pack and you see them take it, look at it, throw it in the trash. I'm not eating that. Like, I don't eat any of that. So it's like, hey, but they fed them. So you can tell the parents at home, like, hey, we fed your kid on the way home. They had a grab and go. It had a yogurt, a chocolate milk, and a Bosco stick. It's like, have you ever eaten a cheese stick with the chocolate milk? I mean, it's probably worse than it sounds. I haven't because I don't eat either. But it's one of those things where that's a real thing because like there are research, there are people trying to do things. The wraparound centers down there in the South End, they're doing things like people donate stuff. But it's like, hey, we have a family who needs clothes. I'm gonna donate this video game. Well, great, you donated something, but that's not what they needed. And so that's kind of, I think we could probably more direct and focused in what we're trying to do with that type of stuff because it's a real thing. And it sounds crazy and people don't, if I wasn't that person, I wouldn't understand it either. But I am so insanely picky that I'd rather starve than try something new. And that sounds insane, but then I go in and it's like I'm a butthead because I'm starving. So it's like 1 + 1 = 3. It doesn't add up, but that's just how it goes. And so that's where I think we can do a better job of adjusting to that, and making sure our kids are fed and clothed and have the right resources to get the things done because it makes a big difference in the day-to-day basis at the school.
Let them pack their own lunch.
I mean, it could be one of those things where it's like, hey, you could literally have a table like, hey, we have these things. Go grab 1 or 2 things. I mean, but like I have kids who come to school, no lunch, no nothing, then they don't eat what we have at school, and they're starving. It's like, buddy, I'm like, buddy, I can't help you. I need you to, like, you got to eat something. And so then they drink their chocolate milk and they go ask some friends for some Doritos at lunch. I mean, it's a real thing. And those types of things would be such a game changer for our kids at the school. I ate today. I slept last night. I'm not starving. I'm not in a bad mood because I don't have anything to eat or I know I'm going to have something to eat. Like essentials. It's stuff that most people don't have to think about. And so it's something that I wish that we didn't have to, but it's a real thing. So I think being more focused on the options or being more generic and like, again, I can say all these things, but I don't have a specific answer. But I just know that what we're doing right now isn't working. And so that's something that's got to change in a way. Anybody else? I appreciate you guys.